Hey guys, the Unsmooth Criminal here. This is going to be a one shot for a series that I hope you guys will want because I kind of want to do it, but if this video gets 10 likes and no one comments to do it, I'm gonna do it. This is what if Deku fell in love with the number one villain. So we start off with the fight of a lifetime. It's a 6-year-old girl versus All Might. And there's a little kid watching from the sidelines, and he's 6 also, and he's a little down on his luck because he's diagnosed quirkless. And this little girl looks like a demon, a possession. So she has a possession like Mira from Fairy Tail. So she has the ability to get possessed by a demon. And she sees this little boy, and since her quirk makes her to the adult form while she's using it, she has adult feelings, and she starts to feel attraction towards him. And one of her possessions has the ability to see someone's future if she's looking at them for long enough, and she sees his future and sees how he looks in the future. So she finishes the fight with All Might, but doesn't hurt him because she sees that he's cheering for All Might. So she's like, I'm not going to take down All Might. And she disappears. It's like she just vanished. And later that year, Izuku, who is sitting in class, and the teacher says, we have a new transfer student. And she shows a little girl into the room and says, this is our transfer student. And everybody asks, what is her quirk? And because she's smart enough, she says her quirk is she's quirkless, and she starts hanging out with Deku. To present time, she's still been doing her vigilante work now, but she was a villain for 2 years because she just wanted to do whatever the hell she wanted. But she's also been a guardian angel for her crush of sorts, and Deku has been getting along with her really well and is saying that he's going to get into UA if it's the last thing he does. And she says that she's rooting for him and that she'll try to get into UA too. And he said is that it would be fun if they both get into UA. The sludge villain attack happens, and the sludge villain, before it can actually latch on and get hooked onto Izuku passes out, and she appears in front of the sludge villain. And the sludge villain sees this woman in front of him and knows exactly who it is because she's known as the Vanishing Devil. Because every time she does something, she vanishes right after. And she knows All Might's coming, so she's going to show that she's protecting this kid to All Might. But that's it. And All Might shows up, and she has a bottle with the sludge villain in it, and she hands it to All Might and then disappears. And Izuku wakes up and sees All Might and is like, wait, what? And then looks at All Might and actually processes that it's All Might, and he goes, All Might, can I get your autograph? And he goes, sure. He signs his book, and Izuku asks All Might the burning questions he's had, and his question was, can I be a hero while being quirkless? And All Might in this one is heard of a kid that's been protected by this girl, the Vanishing Devil, and says, I'm sorry, but you cannot be a hero while being quirkless without really good skills. And he evades the question by saying that there are some quirks that don't even affect human bodies, and that the person with the quirk has the skills to back up his claims of being a hero. And he just evades the question, and he feels a pair of eyes staring at him, just burning into his soul. And he looks around, and all he sees is the little girl running up to Izuku, or not really little girl, but a girl running up to Izuku and asking what is going on, and she looks at All Might and she geeks out like Izuku because she is acting quirkless. But All Might feels a presence from her and is like, okay, don't mess with her. Oh, crap. Crap. Sorry for I sneeze. Sorry if you heard that. I sneezed. And he's like, don't mess with her. And okay, so he says, I could probably help you with your fighting technique and your strength if you come to Bodega Beach tomorrow. And he jumps off, and the sludge villain escapes. Izuku hears the explosion, and she also hears the explosion. And Izuku runs off to the explosion to see what's going on. He sees Katsuki, and he still thinks Katsuki is somewhat of his friend, but his best friend, that he claims is his best friend, says that Katsuki's only done nasty things to him, but if you still want to save him, go ahead. I can't control you. And he said, you're right about the second, but the first, I don't know. And she goes, I'll talk to you about this later, but go ahead and save him if you want. And Izuku runs in, and because she knew he was going to go do that. And he gets reprimanded by the heroes, and then All Might catches up with them on the way back because he never stepped in. Instead, the vanishing devil stepped in again. And All Might, who's following them slightly, runs in front of him and says, I've been inspired by you, young man, and I wish to impart something that I've been hiding from the world. And the girl next to Izuku knows exactly what it is, and this story's going to be following the girl. And All Might looks at the girl and says, how you do, and how do you do? And she says, fine. And he goes, this is a secret that I would like to pass on to young Midoriya alone. And she goes, okay. And she kisses Midoriya's cheek, saying, I'm going to go home, talk to you later. And he goes, bye, not noticing the kiss. And All Might, noticing the kiss, goes, okay, so I know who the Vanishing Devil is, and I know that I can't beat her in my current state. So he looks at Deku, and he explains and it goes to canon all the way up to the last day of training with Izuku and his best friend. And they go to the entrance exams, and she is claiming to be in a different block than him, but All Might says you must let her in immediately, especially if Izuku Midoriya is let in. And the exams go to canon, and she meets him at the front gate, and everything else goes to canon, with him getting into 1A and her getting into 1A. And Nezu, while All Might's explaining what to do with this girl, he asks, who is this girl? And he says she's the number one villain, or the last few years, a vigilante. And what do you mean, the number one villain? And he goes, this is the possession quirked person known as the Vanishing Devil. And they look at him like he's crazy, and he goes, if you want to know why I think this, it's because the Vanishing Devil has been protecting Izuku Midoriya, and I've seen her protect him, and I've seen her do it twice, and see how she looks at him, and I've seen how the little girl that is near him looks at him, and they have the exact same look in their eyes. And Nezu saying, okay, I trust you, All Might, but if this is a hunch, if this is wrong, this is going to look badly on UA. And he goes, I know, and I am 90% sure that I'm correct. And Nezu says, fine. So on the first day of UA, Izuku doesn't see his friend, but he walks into class and he gets jumped by somebody. And his eyes are clapped shut by the hands of this person. And she says, guess who? And Izuku says, Yui. And she goes, dang it. How do you know? And he goes, because you're the only one who does that to me. And she goes, true. And she finally builds up the courage to ask him out. And he goes, if you beat me in today's test. And she goes, what do you mean today's test? And he says, did you not notice the teacher underneath the desk? And she goes, yeah, I did. And he goes, I did too. And by who is under the desk, we're probably not going to go to orientation. And Uraraka now is overhearing this. And she has a crush on Izuku because she got saved by him. And she goes up to him and asks, what do you mean we're not going to orientation? And he goes, Eraserhead has a way with his students. And last year he expelled the entire class because they apparently weren't heroic enough for him. And all of a sudden everybody pales at hearing this. And Eraserhead stands up and says, so who are the two that noticed me? And Izuku and Yui both raise their hand. And he goes, oh, okay. And he goes, so you two are going to be my favorite students. And Izuku goes, sure. It's now time for the ball throw. And Izuku is going with the ball throw, but he's learned ways to cope with the strain. So he's got full cowling early because of Yui. She gives him ideas of how to calm down the quirk. And it's now time for him to throw the ball. And he gets the exact same as Cannon. Because he used it throughout his whole entire body. So he has more force behind it. More force behind his hand. And Katsuki, getting pissed off, is about to throw a punch at Izuku, but for some reason he gets held back. And Aizawa, seeing that he was held back for a split second, throws his scarf around Bakugo and says, if you touch him, I'm expelling you. And Bakugo goes, what do you mean? He's a quirkless nobody. And everybody looks at him and goes, what do you mean? He just used a quirk. And Bakugo looks at the and says, he's been quirkless for the last 15 years. You really think he actually has a quirk? And Izuku goes, I have a quirk now, Kachan. And it's as strong as yours, and I can now face you in fair combat. And Bakugo goes, yeah, right. Nobody can beat me. His arrogant personality coming through, and Izuku being nice to Katsuki is getting on Yui's nerves because Katsuki's not being nice to Izuku, and they're now Yui is now pissed at Katsuki. So overnight she tortures Katsuki in the demon form, and he finally gives in and starts to break down, and he starts to lose his arrogant personality. The next day, Katsuki's quiet the entire day, and it's now a week later with the Heroes vs. Villains. All Might runs in saying, I am here, walking through the door like a normal person. And All Might says, no one can be a hero without having a costume. And she puts on a costume that looks like this. And she kind of looks like this. So she puts on a costume like that, and she walks out, and Midoriya, who currently has his mask on, gets a nosebleed. So it's now, instead of Uraraka and Izuku, it's Izuku and Yui versus Bakugo and Ida. And Bakugo, who's less arrogant, just stays near the bomb, and Izuku saying that Bakugo would probably run towards him. Yui goes, "Have you seen how he's been acting today? I don't think he will." So they go, "Okay." And Yui, who's still acting quirkless, but she still has above average speed, strength, and endurance for being a quirkless person, runs into the room with Midoriya and Ida, who knows that Yui is quirkless. Says, "I'll go after Yui. You solve your differences with Midoriya." And Bakugo says, "Gladly." And then he runs at Midoriya, and they start fighting. But with Yui is running, and Ida is quickly catching up with her. And before he could punch her in the back to stop her, and she does a mule kick to his groin. And yes, mule kicks hurt. All of a sudden, he buckles and is on the ground, coughing and slurring his words of, "Oh crap, that hurts." And so it's now time for no. So they win because Ida is now incapacitated with that one kick. Bakugo is incapacitated by Izuku because he had full cowling at 15%, because he got it a lot earlier. So it's now the USJ, and Yui said she would stay home sick. She'd be homesick that day, and Aizawa and All Might, hearing this, they paled at this, and they're like, "Okay, you can stay home sick." And then when they arrive at the USJ, they see this woman standing there, and she looks nothing like Yui because she's using somewhat of a transformation. And she's just standing there, and she says, "I'll be a guardian for these children if you get attacked." And she just stands there and stands there. And Aizawa and All Might, knowing that they can't win against her, says, "Fine." And Izuku says, "You're familiar in some way." And Yui, knowing that, oh crap, if he figures out that I'm I'm gonna be he he's not gonna like me anymore, and she starts freaking out, and she goes, "Nope, first time seeing you." He goes, "No, you were at the sledge villain attack." And she goes, "No, I don't remember you." And he goes, "I was the kid that ran in to get that kid," and he points at Bakugo out, and Bakugo's shivering in fear of her. And she looks at Bakugo and goes, "Oh yeah, now I remember you too." And she's doing this in a deeper voice than normal because she doesn't want to be found out. When Deku becomes a hero, she's going to tell him that she is the apparently number one villain that has been overwatching him and making sure he's not been hurt or mistreated in any way. She's going to tell him that when he becomes a hero. So he goes, "Okay." And he goes back to listening to the conversation or the speech by 13. And when 13's done with the speech, "Oh, thank you, intern boy. Thank you, dude." But it's... And she's standing there, and Aizawa says, "Okay, as long as you don't kill anybody, we are fine with you staying here." And all the students overheard this, and they're like, but she's a villain. And he goes, yeah, the number one villain that All Might, I, and the entire staff of UA, if we fought her at once, couldn't win. Ow. And they all look at Aizawa and you and All Might, going, "But you're the number one hero, and you're a underground hero. You're strong." And they both go, "Yeah, but she's stronger." And she's just standing there with her arms crossed, and she's wearing exactly this. By the way, I love this image. It's a really good image. She looks like Mira. So the portal opens, and she sees it and starts closing it immediately. And Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and the Nomu get through before the other villains can, and there's trapped there, and they see exactly who's there, and they pale a little. And they say this was a bad idea at the same time. Oh, the Nomu can't talk. And Yui, who sees the Nomu, is like, poor creature. So she runs and pierces the Nomu's brain and rips the brain apart so it can't heal. And All Might yells, "Why did you kill that thing?" And she goes, "That was already dead. It was just a corpse walking in a human fashion." And he goes, "How do you know?" And she goes, I'm a demon. I know these things." And All Might goes, "Fine, fine." And then he looks at Shigaraki and Kurogiri, and they go, "You cheated. You cheated." Well, Shigaraki goes, "You cheated." And Kurogiri goes, "We should run." He opens a portal behind Shigaraki, and Shigaraki bails, but Kurogiri gets killed by Yui, too, and Kurogiri is now dead. And they ask, "Why did you do that?" And she said that he was just a stronger version of that thing, and she points at the Inomu. And they go, "Oh, okay." And Kurogiri's mist fades, and Aizawa sees who the mist creature was, a dead corpse of his old friend, and he starts to cry. And Yui goes, "I'm sorry if this was a friend." And she still feels emotions for people who've had loss, because she's had a loss. She's also felt high pain, and that's why she's very clingy to people who actually accept her. And that's why she hides most of her abilities, so people will accept her. And so she disappears after the villains are gone, and everybody calms down because everybody was freaking out that she's going to kill them. And then Izuku gets a call on his cell phone, and everybody freaks out because no one was expecting it. And Izuku asks, "What do you want?" or "Who is it?" And Yui starts saying, Have you seen the news? Or what's going on? Because the news is showing that you were attacked." And he goes, I'm fine. I'm not going to die until I fulfill that promise to you." And she smiles on the other end of the phone, and she goes, "Okay, good. See you tonight." So later that day, Zuko meets up with Yui, and they go on a date. They have a good time, and Yui, feeling guilty, says, "I have a secret to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you yet." And he goes, "You can tell me anything. I won't judge you for it." And then he says, "Unless you're the number one villain." Which then, "I just think you're crazy." And she looks at him and he goes, "Yeah, that would be crazy, wouldn't it?" So it's now the time for the sports festival, and Yui is uh, acting quirkless, and she gets the second place. Izuku gets the first. everybody asks what is Yui's quirk, and Mike was about to say possession, but Aizawa chimes in and says her quirk is quirkless, and we have a strict policy to keep the rest of her information confidential. And he stares at Mike with a "don't do it" look, and Mike gives him the "oh crap, I almost did it" look. And Yui, hearing the conversation because of her abilities from her demon possession, is like, at least they didn't do it. I'd have to kill him then. I'd have to kill everybody here. And then she starts thinking I would have to kill Izuku, and she goes, no, I can't kill Izuku. He's going to just figure it out later. And she starts getting nervous that Izuku's going to figure it out very soon. And then it's the 1v1s, and at the very last, it's Izuku versus Izumi, and not Izumi. Damn it! Izuku versus Yui, and Yui is holding back 30 times what her normal strength would be, and she held back the entire time, but she acted like she was using her strongest stuff. God damn it. So, Yui is now on the losing end, and Izuku is holding back a little so he doesn't completely demolish Yui. But he'll still fight her. And at the end of the sports festival, Izuku, Yui, then Bakugo. Todoroki got the same "your dad's quirk is not yours, your quirk is yours and not his" speech from Izuku. And Bakugo, or Yui, replaced Aoyama. Minetta's still there. So we go to the teachers for teachers versus students, and it's Yui and it's Bakugo and Izuku versus All Might. Yui gets a free pass from the teachers, and everybody asks why, and they go, she's a special case. And they ask, is it because she's quirkless? And they go, no comment. And Yui, knowing exactly why, says, okay, I'll gladly take this. And she cuddles up next to Izuku while they're waiting for his match. And then she says, what did you do in the guys' locker room? And he goes, I had to stop someone from being an idiot. And Yui asks, what do you mean? And Izuku says, Mineta was trying to peek on you guys, so I punched him in the face. And Yui starts to giggle and says, that's just like you to protect girls. And he goes, yeah, I protect everybody. And she goes, yeah, that's what I love about you. And she snuggles closer to him, and then it says, Izuku, Midoriya, and Katsuki Bakugo report to Training Ground Beta. And they report to Training Ground Beta, and it's All Might this time, since Izuku doesn't have or has full cowling faster and is stronger. I'm skipping over the Stain arc because Stain isn't needed in this one. Or Yui wasn't there for Izuku, because Izuku says that she can go to whatever agency she wants, and she went to Ryuku's. And after, Izuku's in the hospital with a few cuts, and she's freaking out. And he says it's fine. And he wouldn't tell her what happened to him. So she's on the dark about that. And so it's teachers versus students. And Izuku, having the shoot style the shoot style faster and better. Uses that. So he's at 23-ish% of one for all, and now it's the training camp, and Yui walks with Izuku to the edge and says, I think we should jump. And he goes, yeah. You want to see a cool jump? And she goes, sure. He goes full cowling and he says, get on my back. She gets on the back and he jumps and lands in a hero pose. And she goes, oof, that must be bad for your knees. And he goes, definitely. Ow, that hurt. And she, knowing that she can't use her healing, is like, I really want to heal him. So she goes with him and walks through the forest, and all the rock monsters are staying away from them. And Izuku's wondering why, and she goes, I don't know. And so they get there within an hour, and everybody else gets there within 3 hours, like canon. And Izuku's already talked to Koda, and Koda's opened up faster to Izuku because Izuku has somewhat of a relationship with Koda about one of their parents dying, because Izuku's mother died to a villain, and that villain was his girlfriend, Yui. And Yui didn't know she killed Izuku's mom until after it happened. So Yui feels guilty about that. So that's why she's trying to hide who she is, so Izuku doesn't get angry with her and leave her. So it's the third day. They have another warp quirk, so they get to the place and they try to kill All Might because he's there again, and they get stopped by the Vanishing Devil again. And Izuku now is putting it together that there's a student in class that is the Vanishing Devil, because they've only appeared when the students are in trouble. But since he hasn't been around all these students at the same time and saw the Vanishing Devil, he doesn't know who to mark off the list of who's not the Vanishing Devil. Then he's like, wait, I was. So he starts putting it together that someone in class that was not there at the USJ was the Vanishing Devil, and he asks Aizawa who was not at the USJ, and Aizawa says there was only one kid not at the USJ, and that was Yui. And Izuku's eyes widen, going, okay. So he grabs Yui and says, I want to take you somewhere, and Yui says, sure. And he runs with Yui on his back to the spot where Koda fought Muscular. Or not Koda fought Muscular. Deku and fought Muscular in canon, and he asks Yui if she is the Vanishing Devil, and she starts laughing, going, no, that'd be crazy, I'm quirkless. And he goes, really? And he flicks her in the arm, and without her seeing, and nothing happens, and he goes, a quirkless person would have noticed what I just did. And she goes, what did you just do? And he goes, exactly. I just did 100% flick on your arm and you didn't notice. And she goes, why would you hurt me? And he goes, because I don't like you lying to me. And she goes, I'm sorry. And he goes, it's okay. I forgive you for lying to me. And she starts crying and saying that she's lied about a lot of things. And he goes, I understand a little bit of it. And I have one question for you. Did you know it was my mother when you killed her? And Yui, hearing this, starts crying even more and says, no, I did not. And Izuku goes, okay, I understand. She was just some collateral damage. And Yui says, yeah, I'm sorry. And they start to make up a little. And Izuku says, I've noticed this feeling for you for the last 3 years. And I think I'm finally ready to say this. And she goes, what is it? And he goes, I love you. And she goes, I love you too. So it's now time for the licensing exams. And Yui, who doesn't need to hide her identity anymore, is now a part of the exams. And the proctor of the exams, the guy who's running it, says, we have a special guest, and she has been a vigilante slash villain for a long time now, and she wants to change. And we are glad that she's changing, because no matter what we've done, she's not been able to be captured or anything. And she walks in and says, I'm the Vanishing Devil, and I'm here to become a hero. And everybody gets scared. And she vanishes and appears next to Deku in her human form and says, I'm here to become a hero, and I'm not going to be using my possession state. And Izuku goes, really? You're not going to be using your possession state? And she goes, no. And he goes, really? And he pokes her in the head and says, then what are these? And she's like, what are what? And then he grabs the little nubs that are horns, and he goes, what are these? She goes, that's a side effect of my quirk. I have little horns growing, and I've slowed their growth because I stayed in human form for a longer period of time than I was supposed to help them grow. And he's like, oh, okay. And she says, I do have a tail, though. And he goes, what do you mean? And she flicks him with the tail and says, this is it. It looks like a little devil tail. And if anybody knows what the devil tail looks like, it's a mouse icon on a screen, on a computer screen, with a really long black piece connected to a human body. That's a devil tail. And she flicks him with it and says, this is my devil tail, and you've noticed it for a while now. And he goes, yeah. So they pass the exams with flying colors, and Gang Orca knows to not attack Izuku, because if he attacks Izuku, she could go berserk. And none of these students would attack Izuku, but some of them did, and she didn't go berserk because she was holding herself back. Now it's the internships, and Izuku interned at Night Eye's agency, and she interned at Night Eye's agency because she wanted to stay near Izuku, and Izuku was fine with it. Night Eye accepted both of them. When he saw her, he's like, okay, I'll accept you, but I need to test you. And she saw the scowl, or he saw the scowl she gave him, and he's like, don't worry. He just said, take this stamp from me, and I'll gladly let you through. And you could stamp your own paper. And the same thing happened in canon, where he didn't step on any All Might memorabilia. And he sees this and stamps and says, I'm here to make you stop trying to be a hero and give the quirk to Mirio, because I think Mirio is a better successor. He says this straight up to Izuku, and Izuku says, okay, you can do whatever you want. I'm still going to be a hero. And the overhaul arc changes a little, because it's Yui, Deku, and Mirio chasing Overhaul, and Deku and Mirio are going at really fast speeds because Mirio is already there and Deku is running at 50%. Yui's keeping up because she transformed into her possessed state. This is going to be a little bit shorter than normal. She transformed into her possessed state, and they start fighting. The fight pretty much goes to canon, except for Yui helping a lot. And Overhaul getting captured. And instead of Mirio bonding with Eri a lot, it's Yui and Midoriya bonding with Eri a lot. So Eri starts calling Huey mom and Midoriya dad, and they start acting like a family, and she calls Mirio uncle, which makes him happy, but thinks I wanted to be a big brother to her. But uncle works fine. So they go to the festival. And they have the canon thing happen with the dance party. And that's all for this What If. If you guys want the number one villain, demon number one villain, to be in love with Deku, tell me in the comments and or hit the like button. So, talk to you guys later. Bye!